I can show you many on my phone. It's not just galamsey or financial offenses, but even murder. Some cases I've actually had to report under security for my security to be reviewed and all.
We hear from the AG as he warns President Akufo-Addo may be forced to refuse to sign the anti-gay bill into law if Parliament passes it in its current form.
My advice clearly will be that the Constitution must be respected, and Parliament's attention will have to be drawn to the fact that there are these financial implications for the taxpayer and for the consolidated fund. If it comes up to that point that the President has any view of it, he can refer it back to Parliament to take a second look at it.
This is Top Story with Evans Mensah.
And Top Story is always brought to you by Vodafone. Now, John News is learning tonight that Attorney General Godfrey Dame has been compelled to review his personal security following threats on his life. The Attorney General says the threats have partly come because he went after galamsey kingpins. He has also been a target for people seeking to bribe him for pursuing other financial crimes. More on that shortly. But first, Godfrey Dame has been wading into the Frimpong Boateng controversy following the former Environment Minister's explosive report that accused several top government officials of deep involvement in galamsey. We are learning tonight that the police is in the process of building a docket of Frimpong Boateng for the consideration of the Attorney General. In an exclusive interview with my colleague Kojo Yankson, Mr. Dame insisted the Frimpong Boateng report cannot be entirely accurate.
I have not seen a copy. I've only heard about it and some discussions. So I'm not in a position to authenticate some of the issues. I realize that when the report made reference to Heritage Imperial, which you just brought up, but significantly it omitted reference to the judgment that had been set aside and all that. And I think that these are very important matters. So preliminarily, I will indicate that, or it suggests that it is not the full perspective of issues that were addressed by the respected professor. It is just his view on certain matters. And it is being put through the processes. I understand that there are some petitions at charge and Special Prosecutor's Office. That is the process that we all have to subscribe to.
He was the chair of the committee. Is it fair to reduce his report to his views?
Yeah, because even an attorney general, when I take a matter to court, it's my view on the matter. And many a time, yes, the courts do not subscribe to our view. The galamsey matters that we just discussed, there were some convictions in the case in which two persons were sentenced to terms of at least 18 years. Just this morning, I confirmed from my Upper Eastern Regional head that one of them, the conviction, was set aside on appeal, and the conviction relating to one of them was affirmed. So really, a report or a statement by the Attorney General does not constitute evidence against any person. The evidence will have to be adduced before the proper forum. So statements set out in a report, yes, emanating from a person respected and all, in my view, will have to be tested. There is no basis for a person to accord any sanctity to such a report. I mean, it's all.
I mean, the same way that you heard something on the radio and thought this is wrong and you stepped in, are you not interested in perhaps pursuing whatever Professor Frimpong Boateng has said to adduce the evidence?
Yes, I am interested in it. But of course, I mean, certain fora have been invoked, and a Sun strategy sees of it, the OSP sees of it. If now I, as a Attorney General, were to review the report, what would you think? I'm sure it will lend itself to all kinds of suspicions. I think that really I can look at the report and review it, but if I do so, you, the same media, will say, oh, it's just a government's lawyer. Yes, so let independent people look at it. And indeed, I think that it's also important to note that the professor has been invited by the police. The police will build a docket out of the allegations made by the professor, and that docket will be ultimately handed to me. So I don't have to stampede the process. by calling for a report and reviewing the findings and all. There are processes. The police is probing statement made by the professor in his report. We work closely with the police. The report will be given to us. We will assess whether it is competent for prosecution or whether any dockets for prosecution can be brought up. So really, I've not removed myself from the process. I'm part of it. It's just due process that will have to be followed. But the caution and admonition that I would like to give you, the media, is that do not raise the level of it and do not accord any sanctity to the report until it has gone through the test prescribed by law.
Are you able to update us on the status of the investigation? Are you being updated on it?
Yes, I know the police have written to him. I know that he has also responded to the police. They are still going through the processes. I also understand that the OSP, as you are aware, has also written to him. I'm not sure of exactly when he is appearing before the OSP. And the child matter, I'm not too sure of who the complainants are, but I'm sure that I trust the Commission of Human Rights to do the proper thing.
Kojo Yankson has been doing that interview, speaking to the Attorney General. He's with me in the studio. And Kojo, he then goes ahead to talk about threats on his life, that at some point he had to escalate it to national security.
Yes, it was an unexpected piece of information that came up when I asked him whether or not he had been subject of attempts to influence his prosecution of Galamsey cases. I think we've all noted how Professor Frimpong Boateng claimed that he was a constant subject of intimidation. I wondered whether in his bigger role as Attorney General he had faced anything similar. That's when he told me about the threats.
We get such representations all the time, such offers of inducement and even threats on our lives. I can show you many on my phone. It's not just Galamsey or financial offenses, but even murder and all. Some cases I've actually had to report under security for my security to be reviewed and all. I'm the kind that has a tendency not to rely on security or so much security, but on certain occasions I've had to have a review of my security, and we get such threats and offers of inducement all the time, but we resist them because some of us have to act in accordance with the mandate that has been given to us under the law and the Constitution of Ghana.
So he's receiving death threats, not only because of Galamsey, but also because of other crimes he is fighting. But let's isolate the Galamsey element for a while, because many have suggested that they haven't seen enough successful prosecution of cases, that he hasn't been tough enough in the war against illegal mining. And yet he says, listen, because of what I have done in this area, I've become a subject of death threats. What is his record in this area? Did you press him on that?
Well, yes, he actually spoke quite extensively on what he considered to be his legacy in the fight against Galamsey. First of all, he pointed to the tightened sentencing, which came to be through his efforts. So today, if you're a local offender, you will be facing anything between 15 and 25 years in jail if you're found guilty of Galamsey offenses. And if you're a foreigner, then it's between 20 and 25 years. That did not used to be the case. Many people were let off with fines. He also talks about the fact that as we speak, there are over 700 people across the country who are being prosecuted for various crimes. He talks about the number of Chinese nationals who have been jailed through the efforts of himself and his office. But most importantly, he says his legacy will be marked by the amounts of money he has saved the public purse through the quashing of judgment debts that would have been due to Galamseyers whose excavators and equipment were destroyed by Operation Vanguard. Let's listen to him.
So that is in essence his defense of his current record and the things that he believes he's done in this particular area. And I noticed that in this conversation with him, he also goes into some depth about the area of Galamsey, the successful prosecutions, but also judgment debts. There's a particular case that you pressed him on,
absolutely,
which was very topical when they were aggressively fighting this, burning excavators, etc. This was a subject of a court action, and he's superintendent over that matter.
This is the case of Heritage Imperial. You will remember it from the Frimpong Boateng report, because this is where Professor Frimpong Boateng mentions Gabi Asare-Otridako, whose client is the owner of Heritage Imperial. Professor Frimpong Boateng, of course, accused him of intervening on behalf of his client. But the most important thing here is that that company then took the government of Ghana to court for destroying its equipment and won a judgment of $15.5 million, which the government of Ghana was expected to pay. The Attorney General, Godfrey Dame, knew nothing of this because at the time that the award was given, he was not Attorney General. But he was watching Newsfile, or listening to Newsfile on Joy, when he heard a pundit mention this case and how it had resulted in a loss of $15.5 million to the state. Godfrey Dame then took advantage of every single opportunity, procedural opportunity he could find, to bring the case back to the attention of the court, even though the time for appeal had lapsed. He managed to get it back into the court and argued to have it quashed. So the government of Ghana was spared the payment of $15.5 million, which they would have had to pay if he had not been listening to Joy on that fateful day. That's not the only case. There's also a case that has gone all the way to The Hague, to the International Arbitration Court. And this was brought by an Australian-owned Ghanaian registered firm, which was seeking damages of over $300 million. Once again, Godfrey Dame has gone to The Hague and argued on the basis of jurisdiction or lack of jurisdiction and managed to have that case suspended. So he points to these as examples of how he has protected the public purse in his bid to fight Galamsey.
Now to another controversial subject, which is the anti-gay bill, to put it shortly, the proper human sexual family values bill, which is before Parliament. You put that to him also, and he raised a few issues. We were under the impression that there was consensus in Parliament and even in government about the current bill. Its status now has been signed off by almost everybody, including the Attorney General. But he tells you in this interview that apparently not. That there are still areas in this bill that will pose a challenge unless Parliament address that. If it goes before the President, he will have no choice than to advise the President to return it. Which aspects are these?
Well, first of all, Evans, it's important to note that the Attorney General is the subject of a lawsuit as we speak. He and the Speaker have been jointly sued because an aspect of this bill, according to the applicant, did not meet the requirements of the law in the Public Financial Management Act 2016, Act 921. Now, the Attorney General points to the advice he gave to Parliament on this particular bill. And even before he started his clause-by-clause analysis in the 18-page advice document that he gave to Parliament, he actually started off by addressing the issue of financial matters by quoting Article 108 of the Constitution, which basically says that Parliament, unless a bill is introduced or the motion is introduced by the President or on his behalf, cannot proceed upon a bill or an amendment to a bill that, in the opinion of the person presiding, makes provision for any of the following. I'll quote them very quickly. In paragraph I, it says the imposition of taxation or the alteration of taxation otherwise than by reduction, or II, the imposition of a charge on the consolidated fund or other public funds of Ghana, or the alteration of any such charge otherwise than by reduction. Now, those two are perhaps the most pertinent to the issue at hand. But it even says in the Constitution that Parliament cannot even proceed upon a motion if it would have the effect of those impositions of charges or taxes. Now, the Attorney General offers his advice. He says, and I quote, "I am of the view that the bill may hold financial implications for the state, particularly regarding A, the collective responsibility of citizens, educational institutions, the executive, legislature, and judiciary to promote the values enshrined in the bill under clause 3 of the bill." He goes on to say the payment for medical assistance or therapy by an approved service provider under subclause 6 of clause 19, clause 20 and 23 of the bill would also have financial implications for the executive. And this one is the most important. C, the provision of prison facilities for persons convicted of an offense to serve their terms of imprisonment in clauses 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 16, 22, and 25 of the bill. So essentially, the Attorney General advised Parliament that, look, if you want people to be jailed for these offenses that you want to, outlaw, you are imposing a cost on the state. So such a bill must come from the executive, from the president or someone who represents him. If it doesn't come that way and it's a private member's bill as it is right now, then it doesn't meet the constitutional requirements. More importantly, he also quoted Section 101 of the Public Financial Management Act 2016, Act 921, which is the grounds upon which he and the Speaker have been sued.
I see. And you asked him that direct question. So what happens if it's passed in this current state? What would your advice to the president be? And his answer was?
That the president might have to send it back.
I think I expressed a view of it. And for me, my honest and sincere view, which is public, is that any law which imposes a charge on the public purse must emanate from the president or a person acts on behalf of the president. That is the clear dictate of Article 108 of the Constitution. And the courts are bound to apply such a provision. So let's see how the courts will rule. It will be dependent on the facts of the case. I indicated that they've taken out certain parts which infringe Article 108, but I still recognize that there are some parts of it which are there. It lends itself to constitutional interpretation.
Putting aside the court case, let's assume that gets dealt with, and this bill makes its way through Parliament.
Right.
It comes to the end of it, and it passes through. And the president now has to assent to it, bearing in mind that it has financial implications on the government. Will you advise him to assent to it?
Yeah, but I mean, if it still has financial implications, my advice clearly would be that the Constitution must be respected, and Parliament's attention will have to be drawn to the fact that there are these financial implications for the taxpayer and for the consolidated fund, and for that matter, Parliament will have to take a second look at it. That is what Article 106 on the process of enacting legislations require. That if it comes up to that point that the president has any view of it, he can refer back to Parliament to take a second look at it.
But that would essentially undo all their work.
No, it will not. It's still. So Article 106 does not take away from Parliament the power to pass laws. The president's prerogative in assenting to bills actually only presents a limited way of contributing to a process of passing laws, which is that if it comes to that process, the president is mandated to draw Parliament's attention to parts of the bill that he considers that Parliament ought to take a second look at. Parliament reserves the right to reconsider, or even Parliament can compel the assent through a vote set out in Article 106. That is that yes, I had either to draw the president's attention, the Parliament's attention to this aspect of the bill. Parliament has proceeded to take out some of the things that really constituted a burden on the taxpayer, which is setting up prisons and medical treatment and whatever. But there is still, I recognize that there is still present the fact that the legislature, the executive, and all persons in Ghana are enjoined to promote the values of the bill. So this clearly will have a tendency to impose a charge on the constituted fund.
Sam George is Member of Parliament for Ningo Pram. He is one of the sponsors of this particular bill. Joins us on the line right now. Mr. George, thanks for your time here on Top Story.
Good evening, Evan. Good evening to your listeners.
What's your response to the Attorney General?
Well, you pulled me out of my campaign for 8 hours. Hopefully, we have our elections on Saturday. I think that the Attorney General must stay focused. I am struggling to appreciate what appears to be flip-flopping on the part of the Attorney General. Because I asked the Attorney General a direct question when he appeared before the committee, and he said he was satisfied that the bill in its current form or shape met all the requirements. I mean, if the Attorney General is coming under pressure from external forces, he should be bold enough to say he's come under pressure from external forces and so is changing his position, and stop hiding behind what will, in my humble opinion, with the greatest of respect to the Honorable Attorney General, amount to very weak arguments. When the Attorney General says that the bill imposes a responsibility on all Ghanaians, including the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary, and institutions of state, to uphold the values enshrined in the law. Why has the Attorney General forgotten the reading of the Constitution? Maybe the Attorney General should go and read Article 39(1) of the Constitution. Everything in that bill derives its source from the 1992 Constitution. Let me read Article 39(1) for the benefit of our listeners. It says, subject to Clause 2 of this article, the state shall take steps to encourage the integration of appropriate customary values into the fabric of national life through formal and informal education and the conscious introduction of cultural dimensions. This is a constitution to relevant aspects of national planning. And it says subject to 2. So what does 2 say? The state shall ensure that appropriate customary and cultural values are adopted and developed as an integral part of the growing needs of the society as a whole, and in particular, that traditional practices which are injurious to the health and well-being of the person are abolished. Except the Attorney General has failed to read Article 39(1) and 2. I don't see the legal logic in the arguments that he's making.
But Sam George,
Article 39(1) is the directive principles of state policy, cultural objectives. The objects and values in our bill are Ghanaian values that have been espoused by our cultural heads and the national House of Chiefs. And so if you say that pursuant to 39(1) and 2, the state, which is the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature, that is what makes up the state. In the bill, you say that they must fulfill their objectives and roles spelled out in 39(1). How does that constitute a financial obligation on them? Is it not an obligation that already exists?
Well, but
is it a new obligation?
But the Attorney General's concern is on that particular clause that still exists. You've talked about, well, the injunctions that society already have on this matter. But what about state institutions like the executive, like the legislature, like the judiciary? All be mandated, to promote.
Were you listening to me when I read Article 39? It says
I did.
The responsibility is the responsibility of the state. Let me take you back to your GSS social studies. What makes up the state? Is it not the institutions of state, the executive, legislature, and judiciary? Are those not what make up the state? When the Constitution says the state shall, who is the state? Or what is the state? Is the state not the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary? So what's the point?
Well, the point, according to Attorney General, is you have to balance that with the constitutional requirement that says a private member's bill should not impose financial obligations.
Is this a new obligation that is being imposed?
This does impose a financial obligation.
No.
Whether it pre-exists or not, your bill imposes a financial obligation. That's his argument.
No. Look, if that was the intentment of private members' bill, then there will be absolutely no private members' bill that will meet the threshold.
But that law is in black and white, right? If it's a private member's bill, then it cannot impose the financial obligations on the state.
Is this imposing a new obligation? No. It is not.
But you are interpreting the law that because you believe in your understanding of the clauses that you've quoted in the Constitution, it's the obligations pre-exist. Then
if you go and read, listen, Evans, read 108. Read 108 well. If you have the Constitution with you. If you don't, let me read 108. Let me just pull up 108 for you and read exactly what the Constitution says. You see, 108 talks about settlement of financial matters. That is the heading. You see, people should stop hiding behind legalese. If they want to support the activities of gay people, the Attorney General and the government of President Akufo-Addo should be bold enough and come out and say they support it. But they should stop hiding behind these frivolous excuses. What does 108 say? It is settlement of financial matters. Is this a financial matter? It says Parliament shall not, unless the bill is introduced or the motion is introduced by or on behalf of the President, proceed upon a bill, including an amendment to a bill, in the opinion, first and foremost, in the opinion of the person presiding, not the Attorney General, the person presiding in Parliament, the Speaker. And then it says, on any of the following: one, the imposition of taxation or the altering of taxation. Does the anti-LGBTQ bill introduce a taxation? Is there any tax element in the bill?
Well, but George, now at least you've heard. I know you have your interpretations. You disagree with the Attorney General, but he's told you that if that part of the bill is not addressed between now and the time it is passed, and it goes before the president in that state, he will have no choice than to advise the president to return it to the House.
That advice will not be based on law. It will be based on the proclivities of the Attorney General and the persons in government who want to support LGBT.
However, you acknowledge it's the president's prerogative to do so, and that's what he's told you it will happen.
But I'm happy the Attorney General in the interview you played made it clear to you that the president does not have the final say in that, and that Parliament can compel him to assent to it by two-thirds majority vote. And at that point in time, we will challenge the authority of the president. Because majority of the Ghanaian people and majority of members of Parliament on the NDC and MPP side are against this whole matter of LGBTQ. So if the president and a few people around him are pro-LGBTQ and want to take that stand, they will be in the minority even within the president's own government. And that's what I'm saying to you, that the argument of the Attorney General is lacking in legal logic.
Sam, let me ask you.
108, I'm coming, wait. 108.1 that the Attorney General is quoting says that it would fail if it is imposing a tax. Can the Attorney General show you the tax that is being imposed by this bill?
Let me ask you just for clarity. So, do I hear you say that as far as you are concerned, this particular provision, which is still in the bill, will not be changed?
Which provision?
I mean, the part about requiring the executive, legislature, judiciary to promote the values enshrined in the bill, etc., which the Attorney General says currently imposes a financial obligation. You're saying this is not something you are prepared to touch?
If the Attorney General wants us to take it out, he should bring an amendment to Article 39 of the Constitution and strike that out of the Constitution. Because that provision in the bill has been lifted from 39. It is pursuant to Article 39 of the Constitution. So except the Attorney General is telling us that Article 39 is unconstitutional, and if it is, he should take steps to expunge it from the Constitution. Until that is done, the Attorney General's argument has no legal legs to stand on respectfully.
Okay. Sam George, thank you very much. What's your own position on this? Let me hear from you. Newsnight in a minute.
Ever visited a shop, picked a whole basket of provisions, toiletries, and very essential things you need, battled a long queue to finally pay, only to be told you can't pay to a merchant number? The way that thing they pay, but with Vodafone Cash, there is no problem. Now, On Vodafone Cash, you can pay all merchants on all networks. Easy peasy. Aye straight. Aye direct. Aye sharp. From your Vodafone Cash wallet to any merchant's number on other networks. So whether you are buying provisions or fuel, medication or food, whatever the service or need, just pay conveniently from Vodafone Cash to any merchant's number. Simply dial *110# to make payment to merchants on other networks today.
Vodafone.
Wouldn't you prefer an apartment hotel? One that offers the utmost convenience of a boutique hotel while offering the idyllic comfort of your own private home. Oasis Park Residences offers luxury studios, 1, 2 and 3 bedrooms both for short and long-term rental at competitive rates. Our sky swimming pool, gourmet outdoor restaurant, and a fully equipped gym rest on a breathtaking rooftop with panoramic views of the city. Oasis Park Residences, located at Shiashi Tetekwashi, 10 minutes from the international airport, is the ideal place for all your accommodation needs. Why don't you give us a call on 020-4343-009 or visit our website at oasisparkresidences.com to make your reservations. Oasis Park Residences, more than a home.
In a world that's always moving, it's important to have a bank that shares your values and your spirit of perseverance. A bank that understands what it takes to succeed and is there to help you every step of the way. Whether starting a business, building a home, or planning for retirement, we're committed to providing you with the highest level of service and support. We understand the changing times and are ever ready to partner you. We accept your challenge and are ready to build tomorrow with you because our values of responsible, effective, and decisive, just like yours, have brought us success over the years. And we are committed to helping you achieve your goals today and tomorrow.
Cowbank, forward together.
Good evening and welcome to News Night. In the next 60 minutes, founder of defunct Capital Bank, William Atwesian, risks possible jail term as High Court dismisses his last-ditch push to renegotiate payment of almost 60 million cedis to the state.
What is 4 million out of 60 million? And remember, court does not even have the power or the discretion to extend time for such a convict. So we think that the convict has come to the end of the road and for that matter, he must be sentenced.
We have details of that also tonight.
Kanya dodo mako mara dole bobo mi avion nyuna tomolo. Fime mako li dodo kula du fufu.
When I was going, then the boat has come and tin. Then I was holding my brother and my brother fell down. Then I can't find my brother again.
Tonight, anger greets Fana boat disaster, which has so far claimed 9 lives as it emerges that a 12-year-old was manning the boat when the incident occurred.
The person who was handling the boat was a 12-year-old. So if you have these minors on boat and there's a small wind or a wave, this case cannot balance on the boat for which it will eventually capsize. That is what really happened.
Tonight, there's a strong push for prosecution of those responsible for the negligence that led to the loss of these lives.
You cannot rule out criminal negligence in this case because someone in whose care these children were, someone has breached a duty of care. And to the extent to which this has resulted in the death of people when you don't do your work well, I think that it's time for us to prosecute people for this level of negligence.
Also in this package, children bearing the brunt of the government's refusal or inability to pay pensioner bondholders their coupons, with many sacked from school due to their guardians' inability to pay their fees.
Why are you not in school?
Because my grandma doesn't have money to pay my school fees for me.
Who is holding your grandma's money?
Nana Akufo-Addo.
I see. So if you meet him one-on-one today, what will you tell him?
I'll tell him that I want my grandma's money back for her.
We have details of that.
And in business, industries describe as too early push for price reductions following significant drop in inflation rates since the beginning of this year.
And in sports, Black Meteor's management committee chairman says the team is ready to make a good account of itself at the Under-23 AFCON tournament slated for June this year.
And much later, abandoned key hospital projects in the Ashanti region leave residents worried as pressure continues to mount on already existing facilities.
The regional hospital at Sewua is completed. We are left with access road to the facility and dedicated electricity and water supply.
We are very disturbed. It has become a nightmare.
And then later here in the bulletin, we'll tell you why Afro rock song Chen Chen Be Di Mewo is arguably the most sampled Ghanaian song of all time. Plus your views and comments 055-1111-997. My name is Evans Mensah.
And I am Emefa Apawu.
And we start tonight from that case in court. Founder of the defunct Capital Bank, William Atoisian, risks possible jail term as an Accra High Court today dismissed his last-ditch push to renegotiate a new payment of almost 60 million cedis to the state.
Well, Mr. Essien has breached the terms of an agreement that saw him escape jail term and commit to refunding 90 million cedis to the state. He was to pay 20 million cedis of this amount by April 28, but only managed to cough out 4 million cedis. The businessman has, as a result of this agreement, been convicted for multiple counts of stealing and money laundering for his role in the collapse of the Capital Bank. Deputy Attorney General Godfred Chiayeboah told the High Court failure to meet his term means it is time for a custodial sentence.
Custodial sentence. He has spanned such an opportunity, and we think that the section in the Courts Act, Section 35, especially Section 35(7), must apply. Even as I told the court, if you look at Section 35(7), the court does not even have the power or the discretion extend time for such a convict. So we think that the convict has come to the end of the road, and for that matter, he must be sentenced.
So that's the Deputy Attorney General Godfred Chiayeboah. Legal Affairs Correspondent Joseph Akable was in court for us. In fact, followed this case all through up until today. He joins us via Zoom with further details of what transpired in court. Well, Mr. Essien's lawyers, we understand, Joseph, came to the court with a check. How much was this, and why has he failed to pay the 20 million he was required to pay?
It is a check for 1 million cedis. Lead counsel Thaddeus Sori actually had the check with him and said that it was commitments that he intended to refund the money to the state, and it's not a case that he's simply refusing to do so. They actually provided to the court an agreement that they had with some businessman in terms of some business inflows that are supposed to come in, which they say that due to various challenges, they've not been able to come in. And so that is how come he couldn't meet the terms of the agreement to refund or pay the 20 million by April 28. And so he had brought the check to court to say that, look, if the court agrees and puts the proceedings relative to his possible custodial sentence on hold, he'll make the 1 million cedi available and now talk to the Attorney General in terms of some new terms that could be reached in terms of making how that remaining amount should be provided.
What then was the AG's office response to this?
Deputy Attorney General Alfred Chiayeboah did not accept this view at all. In fact, he insisted that the law in question, Section 35 of the Courts Act, it operates in a very simple manner. Once you enter into that agreement, you are convicted then of the said offenses, and you enter into the agreement. Once you breach the agreement, the entire amount becomes due. So his argument is that right now, the only way Mr. Essien, the only option he has is that he should give the entire money to the state, and once he has not decided to do so, it means that the only other option that the court has is that it should impose custodial sentence. It says the law uses the word shall, which means that it's mandatory for the court to do so.
Every opportunity to be spared custodial sentence. He has spanned such an opportunity, and we think that the section in the Courts Act, Section 35, especially Section 35(7), must apply. Even as I told the court, if you look at Section 35(7), the court does not even have the power or the discretion to extend time for such a convict. So we think that the convict has come to the end of the road, and for that matter, he must be sentenced.
They had made the case that they could provide an additional 1 million, and also the point that there's the possibility that it's due to some difficulties, that is how come they couldn't. I mean, in the end, do you think that is it not in the interest of the state if you get the money more than it's been taken into consideration to have him put in jail?
First, he's talking about 1 million or having paid 4 million Ghana cedis. What is 4 million out of 60 million? And remember, per his refusal to pay as ordered by the court, we are not expected to pay only 20 million, but he's supposed to pay 60 million. So having failed to do so, I think it to be in the interest of justice that the law as we have it is made to work. It is true that we may think that the state needs money, but the laws must also be obeyed.
During the initial stages of the...
Well, so Joseph, correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I'm hearing so far, it means that there are at least two options available to Mr. Essien to avoid the sentencing. Tell us more.
So the first option, which the Deputy AG Alfred Tuayabwa hinted on, is the refund of the entire amount which is due. And we know that he has paid 4 million cedis. And so it means that what is outstanding is 56 million cedis. And so if he provides the 56 million cedis at the next date, then Mr. Tuayabwa believes that that satisfies Section 35 of the Courts Act and deals with the matter once and for all. And he just has to walk away and go home. And the other option is that they've already filed affidavit in opposition to the push for custodial sentence. And so they are telling the court that, look, we don't think that you should impose custodial sentence, even though we admit that it's not kept to the terms of the agreement. But that will be dependent on the arguments that will take place and what the judge arrives at by way of his conclusion.
If, for example, we expect that come here today, he will just come and say, have the 60 million. He will spare custodial sentence. So if he's able to pay the 60 million, he's not lucky that the court has adjourned the matter to next week. So if he has the 60 million next week and he comes to court and he says he's paid it, that ends the matter. If you steal or you commit an offense against the state and it involves dishonesty, which has resulted in the state losing some amount of money, if you are convicted and sentenced, the next step is that the state will take every reasonable step to recover the money from you. So if, for example, he's not able to pay the outstanding sum and the court sentences him to a prison term, that will not stop us from pursuing him to get that amount. Unfortunately, we have not been served with affidavit in opposition. If you get it, then we'll respond accordingly. But now, I want to leave it.
So, Joseph, they are expected in court next week. What exactly is to happen? I'm sure you've been getting reaction from the lawyers. Is he supposed to cough up that 60 million by the time he gets to court next week? What exactly is at stake?
So next week, the Attorney General will move the motion asking the court to impose custodial sentence because William Atuesien has not complied with the orders of the court in indicating that he was going to pay the first tranche of the 60 million cedis, that's the 20 million cedis, by April 28, 2023. Once the AG moves the motion, lawyers for Mr. Essien will respond and explain why they think that, despite not obeying that particular term, they feel that the custodial sentence should not be imposed. And so the court would have to come to a ruling on that. And once the court comes to a decision, then we'll know what happens next. I mean, there was this interesting point that also came up in the course of the proceedings about what happens to the amount that he has already paid to the state. Mind you, he has paid 34 million cedis so far to the state. The entire amount is 90 million. He was to pay 30 million upfront. It was the remaining 60 million that he was supposed to pay in 3 installments, with the first 20 million due on April 28. And so the question was asked by his lawyers that if you decide they are going to put him in jail, I mean, what happens to what he has already paid? And then the response from the judge and what the Deputy Attorney General argued was to point out that when the court is pronouncing the custodial sentence, it comes to the conclusion that it should do so and it's proceeding to pronounce it. It will consider how much has been paid in relation to the length of years that should be imposed where necessary.
And just before I let you off, by the way, was Mr. Atuesien himself in court?
Yes, he was actually in court. In fact, his lawyers actually indicated to the judge that per the judgment of the court, there was even the option that the state could have caused this arrest when he failed to pay the 20 million on April 28 and produced him in court. But they made the point that he's a law-abiding person, and that's how come he has come to court on his own. He was in court along with some other family members, very calm. He was called up front. He went to sit down quietly. The judge asked how he was doing. He nodded his head and sat down quietly and was just monitoring proceedings closely. I mean, there's the risk that, next time that he may come to court, we don't know how things may go, but that could be a different scene altogether, because for the business of today, we knew that there was the option of the back and forth, and not likely that the court will consider the issue of whether custodial sentence should be imposed or not.
Thank you very much. That's our legal affairs correspondent, Joseph Akable. And we'll stay on issues relating to the law.
Yeah, talking about legal affairs. Indeed, the Attorney General has been speaking today about a number of issues. On Top Story, we focus on two of them. One with Frimpong Boateng and the Galamsey fight and threats that on his life. And then secondly, with the controversial issue of the LGBTQ bill, which is before Parliament right now. And he had made the point.
Before we go into that, though, the threats on his life, clarify what exactly were the issues that were raised for those of us who did not listen to Top Story.
So he has obviously been fighting illegal mining and financial crimes generally, and he makes the point that there are individuals who have, because of that, threatened him.
Okay.
Some of us actually attempted to financially induce, and because of that, he has had to file reports with national security. And they had to review his personal security as well because of the threats on his life. On the Galamsey bit, on the LGBTQ bill, which is before Parliament, he had made the point about some aspects of the bill currently, which still imposes financial obligation on the state, particularly the part requiring agencies of state to still promote this particular bill if it's passed into law. And he had made the point that if Parliament still has time to deal with that, but if it passes it in its current state, it will have no choice than to advise the president to return it for reconsideration. But he also detailed aspects of this process where, in his opinion and advice to the Parliament and the committee dealing with this, he had supported many aspects of this particular bill and actually advised that those provisions should be maintained.
Absolutely. In fact, he gave me 3 examples of aspects of the bill that he completely supports and considers to be constitutional. He said, for example, that the bill's attempt to criminalize sexual intercourse or unnatural carnal knowledge between or among persons of the female sex, which is not currently criminalized by Ghana law, it would be constitutional for Parliament to seek to pass a law to criminalize that. He talks about broader prohibition of unnatural carnal knowledge or sexual intercourse between persons of the same sex as known to Ghana law. He said that all of that would be completely constitutional for Parliament to seek to make a law which would criminalize. He also then spoke about Article 17(4)(b) of the Constitution, which he says, in making an exception to the freedom from discrimination provision in the Constitution, permits the state to enact specific laws to provide for matters relating to adoption, marriage, divorce, burial, devolution of property on death, or other matters of personal law. Essentially, he's saying that Parliament has every right to pass laws against gay marriage, to pass laws against adoption by gay couples, and so forth. Therefore, the president, when he recently said to some church group that there will not be the legalization of gay marriage during his term, the Attorney General is supporting that by saying that Parliament has every right to pass a law that would prohibit that. And finally, the third example is that keeping a brothel for a prohibited sexual activity, which is addressed by Clause 9 of the bill, would also be completely constitutional for Parliament to pass laws against.
And another part that you put to him, Kojo, and he elaborates on this, the part of the bill that says you cannot promote it once Parliament passes this particular bill into law. He says he supports that because once it's been passed, it becomes an illegal act, and so you can therefore not promote it. Listen to him expand on that thought.
But again, I also advise that the part of the bill which sought to prohibit a person from publicly promoting LGBTQ is not unconstitutional. It means that if I were to go on radio advocating that there should be LGBTQ and whatever, and there is a law which seeks to prohibit that, in my view, it is not unconstitutional. Because you cannot go on radio and, of course, openly advocate the commission of crime or something that has been banned or prohibited criminally.
Let me, if you don't mind, let me ask, for example, if today I were to go on radio and say that I think marijuana should be legalized, would I be committing an offense by making that utterance?
No, so if you look at my opinion, and I think my opinion has to be looked at very critically. Very critically because it deals with various situations. There were parts of the bill which sought to criminalize such a thing as you indicated. And I said that no, that would really infringe on the right to freedom of speech, expression, thought, conscience, and belief. But there were also parts of the bill, certain provisions in the bill, which sought to criminalize the advocacy, the open advocacy for the bill, and then even promotion of advocacy for LGBTQ and promotion of LGBTQ to children. And I felt that the parts that related to promotion of and advocacy for LGBTQ to children probably were not unconstitutional, because Article 26 makes provision for such a situation. Article 17 actually talks about nothing preventing Parliament from enacting laws which regulate family matters, adoption, marriage, barrier, devolution of property, intestacy, and what have you. And again, if you look at the standard in Article 12, Clause 2, which also sets out public interest as a very important factor to be taken into account in the enjoyment of rights. It tells you that if it's recognized that it's on the public interest, it can be curtailed. So rights are not absolute. And I refer to Supreme Court decision in the Ghana Independent Broadcasting Association against the Attenjura, which established that point.
So I actually noticed that there are a number of aspects of the bill that you found to be completely fine, not unconstitutional. For example, the bill's intent to outlaw sexual intercourse that is unnatural carnal knowledge. You felt that was not unconstitutional.
Yes, because really, even presently, it's been
already there.
outlawed.
Yeah.
Yes, just that the extent of it criminalization is a little bit lends itself to ambiguity, and is a little bit vague as well, because really it is linked with penetration. Is the provision of the Criminal Offences Act says that where carnal knowledge is concerned, it shall be established upon proof of the least degree of penetration, suggesting that sexual relations between coordinated to make it uniform.
Yes, and you said that is not unconstitutional.
Yes. Again, too, because articles option.
Right.
So it cannot be unconstitutional for Parliament to enact a law which the Speaker of Parliament.
Speaker of Parliament. It has to do with some sort of financial.
The Speaker of Parliament. So it cannot be unconstitutional for Parliament to enact a law which seeks to prohibit adoption.
Okay, so that's Godfred Yeboah-Dame in that interview with Kojo Yankson. When are we expecting the full interview to be aired?
Well, as we speak, on the Joy News channel, we're airing the first part of it. The Super Morning Show will air it in full on Monday. But in between, you'll be hearing little bits of the very interesting conversation that
you heard it here first on
But
Joy
the place to find it is
99.7
actually
FM.
on myjoyonline.com, but also on our social media platforms as well. All the best bits there.
Thank you very much, Kojo. Now, let's head on to some other stories. And tonight, there's a strong push for the prosecution of persons whose negligence led to the drowning of 9 children at Fana, an island community near Waja, as it emerges tonight that a 12-year-old was manning the boat when the accident occurred.
Well, the boat was carrying 12 school children aged between 1 and 13 years, capsized, drowning 9 with 3 of them surviving. Now, Joy News understands the owner of the boat has reported himself to the police. Listen to the account of one of the survivors.
Coming home, we don't get boat, and I saw some young boy driving a boat, and I called and said that we should come and pick us. So when the boy came, then I told her that we are plenty inside the boat, so we should remove some people down and go and come and take us. The boy told me, said that the boat to go. I told her again, then the boy said the boat to go. When I was going, then the boat has come and turned. Then I was holding my brother, and my brother fell down. Then I can't find my brother again. Then I hold the boat. When I hold the boat, and some man come and take me home.
So at that point, you couldn't get hold of your brother?
Please, no.
Okay. So what happened to the other people in the boat?
Please, they have died.
That's a pretty tragic story there.
Yeah.
To hear her say that. Well, my colleague Carlos Caloni was in the community earlier today and has come through with this report.
This was the mood here at Fana Thursday morning after 9 school children comprising 3 males and 6 females drowned in the Wager Lake on their way back from school. 8 of the bodies were retrieved last night by residents, with the 9th one being retrieved at 10:45 a.m. Thursday morning without the assistance of any state agency. There were 3 survivors. Prior to conveying the bodies to the Kolibu Teaching Hospital morgue, some rituals were performed by the traditional authorities. Deputy Director of the National Disaster Management Organization, NADMO, in charge of operations, Wanda Matthew Jade, explained why NADMO delayed in arriving at the scene to assist residents with rescue operations.
My boss was here. I traveled yesterday night to Kumasi, and I heard the news around 8 o'clock, and I returned just this morning to get here. So for my boss, I've been told he was here all the way.
So what prevented NADMO from joining in the search?
The way the team went right now, right, I'm in to see my boss so that he also briefed me because he was here before me. As I've said, I traveled. So if my boss tells me, oh, NADMO, we were part of the searching, or that before I can say something about it, but for now, I'm sorry.
Speaking to Joy News, the assemblyman for Botiano electoral area, Dan Bright Abayate, demanded that a school be established in the community immediately.
What they have to do is to close it. When they close it, then the river will return to its natural, if you like, standing, so that as and when it overflows its banks, we can have it, gone into the sea at the other side. That's what I can say for now. If they don't do that, we'll continue to have problems. I believe that one of those children gone today can stand and do something, about that thing over there. Should they become somebody prominent in society tomorrow? And we don't know what they are coming to be like. And so I believe that should they be alive tomorrow, they can do something. So if they are pushing for compensation, why not? You understand? Because it is government's responsibility to have school over here. And government FQ, everybody should be in school. So why should you go to school and then and die?
On his part, the Municipal Chief Executive of Gan South Municipal Assembly, Joseph Stevignani, who arrived at the scene in the company of some officials from the Assembly, assured of the Assembly's preparedness to look into the concerns of the residents of Fana.
Said they want the compensation. Let me meet them first and let me hear from them. And then we'll take it from there. So they have been there for over 100 years now. So me moving them from that place, it shouldn't be my decision alone. It should be a decision of the central government. We'll think about it and see what we can do about it.
Reporting from Fana here in the Gan South municipality of the Greater Accra region, my name is Carlos Kaloni for Joy News.
Well, the MC also for the Wejagbawe area, Patrick Kumo, in an earlier interview revealed that a minor was in charge of the boat that was involved in the accident. Listen.
We have information, the police and then the rescue team were deployed around the area, but the information that we got was that the people on the boat were just minors, and these minors we had as low as 1.5-year-old on that boat. The boat was eventually heavily loaded, and then where they were crossing is where we call the estuary, the section that the Denso takes its final source into the sea, and usually at night you have the seas having its tide coming up, and therefore the current around that area is mostly dangerous. Okay. And the person who was handling the boat was a 12-year-old. So if you have these minors on board and there's a small wind or a wave, this case cannot balance on the boat, for which it will eventually capsize. That is what really happened. And I believe when we went there this morning, we noted that even people were still crossing that section without life jackets and all that. Those items have been provided some time back, but as I tell you, these are fisher fools who live around those areas, and they think they've been living there for decades, and for that matter, they are used to the situation around that area.
So what you're saying is you've provided life jackets in the past for these communities, just that they're not using them.
When you come to the old and new Wager area where the dam has its village points, those areas were all given life jackets.
Well, so that's the MCE for the Wejagbawe area. You know, there are two municipal assemblies involved in this particular situation. The Gas South area, they are the residents that are calling for the establishment of a school in the community. We'll get to hear from them on it. But the Africa Education Watch has been wading into it. And tonight they are pushing for prosecutions of persons responsible for this negligence. Kofi Asare is the executive director.
I have doubts that government has the capacity to provide basic schools in underserved communities, especially in island communities. I don't have doubts. If government is able to prioritize spending properly, government should be able to save funds and build schools. It is a matter of priority. Government must change its priorities and let it reflect on the services that are consumed by the poorest of the poor. I keep saying that when public expenditure is going against commodities or services consumed by the poor, it is a problem. The people in this community are not middle class people. They are poor people. And so denying them a school means that you are not spending adequately to cater for the poor. And that is a rights issue and a social protection issue. So I will call again on government that whether the community is big or small, they deserve to have a school, not because of their population, but because of the need to mitigate the risk of traveling on stormy waters with very, very poor supervision daily to school. And also, at what point will we start prosecuting officials who are paid to ensure that there is sanity on our landing basis? Because it is someone's responsibility at the National Assembly to ensure that boats and canoes that are loaded there are observing the minimum health and safety requirements, including having life jackets. On what basis did a 13-year-old boy allegedly paddle a canoe of about 10 people? A 13-year-old boy, that is child labor to begin with. It means that authorities in the district went to sleep for a 13-year-old boy, according to the assemblyman's account, to have paddled this canoe to and from the school. And so a lot of things have gone on, and you cannot rule out criminal negligence in this case because someone in whose care these children were, someone has breached a duty of care. And to the extent to which this has resulted in the death of people, which is foreseeable, when you don't do your work well, I think that it's time for us to prosecute people for this level of negligence. Other than that, it will always be our sympathies. We must end at a point, and someone must face the law for being negligent.
So that's the Executive Director of the Africa Education Watch, Kofi Asare, speaking earlier on The Pulse with Blessed Suga. Let me bring in the Communications Director of NADMO, Mr. George AEC. We are grateful for your time here on Newsnight. So tell us, the search and rescue mission, is it officially over?
Yes, Emefa, it's officially over. Today, by 11 today, it came to an end.
And the official figures, according to NADMO, is?
Yes. As the DC said, 12. 9 people lost their lives and 3 survived.
And in our interaction with residents, we're told that NADMO was missing in action hours after the incident, according to them. What really would you say accounted for the delay on the part of NADMO?
Well, with my engagement with the district director, he said he was present. Yes, I wouldn't dispute the fact that maybe they were late. He's not briefed me on that, but he was present at the scene. I spoke with a sister station who said somebody said NADMO wasn't there at all. But I put that to him, and he said no, he was present. But as to the time he got there, I didn't get into that details with him.
But we've had various accounts about the incident, but from your preliminary investigations, what did your team, or what exactly did this incident point to? What did they tell you?
Yeah, one key thing, they were all minors, and 2. I'm not hearing 12 years because my director used he said the oldest was 15, but I'm getting 13, 12, and co. I think the young person handling the canoe is a problem, and paddling, he lost control of the paddle when the storm came and overturned the canoe. And so that is possibly the cause. They're minors. He doesn't have the strength to be able to paddle such canoe across in case they are confronted with storms. And so I believe that is the basic reason preliminary report is saying.
But Mr. Isi, tomorrow we may wake up and more children would have to travel to school by the same means. What are the interim measures that we've put in place to ensure that this does not happen again?
Yeah, Emefa, going forward, one, we cannot deny these ones the privilege of education is their right, but we need to. Fortunately, we have marine police. If we can get them to patrol such areas, and then we enforce the laws. Minors cannot drive on our roads. You must be 18. If it's a commercial vehicle, you must be 21. And so how come a 15-year or a 13 or 12-year-old is allowed to paddle a canoe to ferry children across the river? That is something we need to look at and begin to enforce the laws to get adults stationed there that can officially ferry people across so they have access to their schools and education in safe hands. That is very important. As district assemblies too, we need to compel district assemblies to allocate part of the budget to procuring life jackets. Life jackets are very important. People get on canoes or boats, and there's not a single life jacket that will look at their safety. And so that part too must be strictly enforced by the assemblies and in partnership with, of course, NADMO and the Marine Police.
Mr. Isi, we're grateful for your time. So that's George Isi, is the Communications Director of NADMO. And Evans, you hear a lot of we have to, if and when, and it raises concerns about whether indeed something is done about the situation. You recall the Senate East incident?
Yeah, there are a few more this year that we have been tracking. And you recall a similar incident that occurred there in Senate East where 8 pupils were drowned while traveling to school on the Volta Lake. This is what the education minister then, we tracked him down. Dr. Yao Duchum told my colleague Benes Abubedu Lansa about providing schools in these island communities with what they require to cross safely.
I felt terrible, especially when children are going to school. If they were doing any other thing, it will still hurt you. But when they are trying to have a better future for themselves, and they are going to school, when this happens, it hurts us. And it's something that we'll have to learn from. We're also going to have a meeting with district directors in areas like that to begin to look at what our short-term, long-term strategies are so that children don't get into harm's way, are doing the right thing that we expect them to do, that is to go to school. So I believe that the lives of these 8 precious children who have lost should not be in vain. If we are able to prevent a future disaster, then even though we've lost them, and may their souls rest in peace, we'll have also vowed to ourselves as a nation that what happened to those children will not happen to any other children. So we need to begin to look at districts where crossing a river, walking through streams is a daily occurrence. And I think, if anything, we should wake up and understand that this is something that should not be occurring in this country. So I'm taking this seriously. The Director General of Ghana Education Service is inviting district directors in all areas where you have these island communities to look at what we need to do. If we can't build a school, what do we need to do to provide them education? But even if it's a one-room school where you have multiple ages in the same room, it's better to have them in that situation than for them to risk their lives. We've looked at the community from where the children were traveling and going to another place. We've looked at the numbers and they deserve a school. So next week we'll be beginning a procurement process through the PPA to make sure we can begin construction of a school. Because the numbers that you're giving us is 98 students. There can be a school for them. One of the things that we as a nation have not done a better job at is education planning. At this ministry, there's not, now we have it, but there was never a place for somebody who sits down and say that we need to plant a school here, we need to have a school here because of population, and we are mapping it. And now with GPS, we'll be able to map it electronically to be able to know that Kaswa needs more school. This place, based on census data, there has to be a school here. So this community, based on the number of students who come from there, about 800 people live there. You have 98 students from that community. They more than deserve a school of their own. So before we talk about life jackets and other things, what we also have to seriously look at this current time is how do we develop a school there on a very fast pace to ensure that within the next 3 to 4 months they have a school of their own, and therefore don't even need to get out and wait at the bank of a river to get into this horrible, terrible disaster that our nation witnessed.
So that is the Senate East disaster that the minister was talking about, committing to do a few things. Let's revisit that. Let's bring in our regional correspondent in Bono East, Anas Sabeto, is on the line with us. Anas, have you learned anything about what has happened in trying to fix this more permanently in this particular part of the Bono East region since that disaster?
Yes, Evans. What we are learning is that the community where we had people losing their lives at Ikagome, we currently have the GES establishing a temporary school in the community. The minister then promised that within a couple of months, a new school structure is going to be built for them. That is not in place as I speak to you now. What we know is that the pupils are currently learning in a particular church in the community. They are no more traveling across the river to the next community where they used to go for schooling. As I speak to you now, I also know that the GS has sent in some 9 teachers to take care of the pupils who are currently being housed in a particular church building where tuition is currently in place. From my sources from the DC, as usual, they say it's in the pipeline. He spoke with the minister recently. The minister said they will be establishing a school block for the community permanently. As I speak to you now, there's nothing like that. And the peoples are being studying or are studying in a church structure in the same community. No more crossing the river to the other side as I speak to you now.
Thank you very much, Anas, a bit with that update there, Emefa. So there you have it. It doesn't appear much has happened since the promises were made after the pupils died.
I dread reporting another incident like this.
A few this year already. George Yaff is here with business. Hello, George.
Hi, Evans. And coming up in business, industries are described as too early push for price reductions following significant drop in inflation rate since beginning of this year. And also be hearing from the president about how he's confident of measures aimed at stabilizing the city as Bank of Ghana improves reserves through the gold purchase program. The business news on Newsnight is brought to you by MTN Business. Welcome to the new world of business. Allianz Life and Ghana Pay.
Wonderful. When everything worth doing is scheduled, hitting the stop button on your alarm just in time for your morning jog. That's happy moments listening to your baby's heartbeat at the doctor's office. Or an arranged virtual meeting with that big client.
Buy airtime ahead of time with scheduled airtime service on MTN Momo. You can schedule your airtime purchase of any amount, daily, weekly, or monthly by dialing *170# option 3 and follow the process. Or simply dial *170*311# for a superb airtime purchase experience. You enjoy 100% bonus airtime anytime you recharge yourself with MTN Momo. Keep on talking with that 100% feeling. So, what are we doing today?
MTN.
Son, we are so proud of you for setting up this hospital. I really love those hospital beds and waiting chairs. By the way, did you import them?
No, Dad, I didn't. I actually got them from Kindle Books and Stationery right here in Ghana.
Wow. We also bought our office supplies, safes, executive desks and chairs from Kingdom, and they gave us expert advice on how to set up our office.
Guys, that makes 3 of us. I also got our sofa and bedroom sets, plus our dining hall furniture for our new home from Kingdom.
Wow, Mom, that makes 4 of us. I usually get my stationery items from Kingdom, and my teacher also mentioned that our classroom furniture was provided by Kingdom.
So there you have it. Whenever you're thinking about setting up an office or acquiring furniture for your home, etc., Kingdom Books and Stationery should be your first point of call. With over 40 years experience in the industry, we stock and supply a wide variety of globally sourced office and home furniture, stationery and equipment. Visit our head office, Osu Akwaje, or our office near the Osu Stadium. We're also in Tema Community 1, opposite Olam SHF, Kumasi KNUST campus, UCC Cape Coast, and now at the Marina Mall, Airport City. Or call us 0302-764101, 764209, or 762792. Visit our website, www.kingdomgh.com.
Historic, iconic, and thrilling. Birth in Spain, 1635. Caught the eyes of the world. Performed in almost all stages in Europe. Listed as one of the 40 greatest plays of all time. Now in Africa, Accra. It's the Afrocentric edition of Life is a Dream by Lateef Abubakar. Live at the Accra International Conference Center, 27th and 28th of May. 2 shows each day, 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. for 150 cedis dial *447 *1092 hash to grab your tickets, or visit at Lateef Globe on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for details. Early bird ticket at 100 cedis before the 19th of May. Available at Joy FM, Bachona Total, and Airport Shell. Life is a Dream is sponsored by Embassy of Spain, MNC Group, the second coming of Nkrumah Project. Powered by Joy Entertainment, Graphic News App, and Globe Productions. Global Productions, experience the best.
Hello CEOs, are you ready? The 7th Ghana CEO Summit and Expo is here. The foremost business conference for over 500 topmost CEOs, heads of state, business leaders and ambassadors, to be held on the 22nd of May 2023 at the Kempinski Hotel, on the theme Economic Sovereignty, Sustainability and Digital Industrial Transformation, New Path for Growth and Prosperity. This impactful summit has attracted over 2,000 high-level dignitaries, including His Excellencies President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, and ex-President John Mahama. Be enlightened with actionable perspectives, CEO performance strategies, strategic insights on the latest business trends through CEO masterclasses, plenaries, keynote, expert insights, and CEO peer networking sessions. Register to participate at GhanaCEOSummit.com. For inquiries, call 0546 391970 or 0244 687222. The Ghana CEO Summit and Expo is powered by Ghana CEO Network in partnership with Deloitte, Ministry of Public Enterprises, GIPC, SIGA, and the Multimedia Group. T's and C's apply.
You're welcome back to Business on Newsnight. Now, industries say it is too early to push for price reductions following the significant drop in inflation rate since the beginning of this year. General price levels of goods and services have dropped from 53.6% to 41.2%, ending April 2023. This has resulted in push for price reductions of some goods on the market by President of the Association of Ghana Industries, Humphrey Yimdake, thinks a lot more time is needed before producers can start adjusting prices.
The producer price index, the PPI, that the statistician uses as his basis determining the consumer price index, is still high on various fronts, and therefore, if in recent times policy taxes are still slapped on businesses, and we just started implementing same of taxes from May, these are yet to be passed through the various products. The impact of the various disruptions and crises were so significant, and I don't believe 4 months to the period is significant enough to correct all those significant disruptions that happen. So we need a bit of time to see things corrected.
Humphrey Yimdake is president of the Association of Ghana Industries. President Akufo-Addo is confident measures being implemented by Bank of Ghana will help deal with the city's perennial depreciation against the US dollar. The president is highlighting the gold purchase program being implemented by the central bank as one of those measures that would help improve the country's reserves and deal with this challenge. The president was speaking at the Graphic Ministry of Land and Natural Resources Dialogue Series today.
Our gold reserves between the 1980s and June 2021 were just 8 tons. Under the domestic gold purchase program, our gold reserves have increased from 8 to 14 tons as at the end of 2022. That is just 18 months of implementation of this program. And clearly, the reserves will continue to grow. We understand our fiduciary duty as trustees of our natural resources for and on behalf of the people of Ghana. And we remain committed to do right by the Ghanaian people in the discharge of our duties as trustees of these resources. But we shall continue to count on your support in the discharge of this onerous mandate.
And that is President Akufo-Addo speaking at the Graphic Ministry of Land and Natural Resources Dialogue Series today. Now, some civil society groups monitoring the country's IMF program have maintained that the country's donor partners can do more. They are really committed to helping to stabilize the economy. It's coming on the back of reports that the IMF board could look at Ghana's program, that is this month, if it's able to secure the required financing assurance from the country's bilateral external creditors. Let's hear from Ben Boache.
When is the credit assurance going to come? I think that is a bigger question. IMF can act quicker if they want to, and they have shown in many countries that they can actually act. And this is where we should also know our friends, right? If you're negotiating to get, debt relief or debt suspension, and they're not coming forth quickly to save your economy, you should also know who to turn to when times are good, right? And I think these are conversations that we need to have. The time frame for delivering some of these solutions for African countries. You can drag and drag and drag, and our economies get worse for it. And that makes the problem even difficult to fix because the cracks are still there and they are getting deepened by the day. And the IMF says it's waiting.
Mbwachi is the executive director of the African Center for Energy Policy, one of the civil society groups monitoring Ghana's IMF program request. Now, Chief Executive of the Ghana Employees Association, Alex Fimpon, is pushing for improvement participation when it comes to decision-making at the workplace and corporate institutions. He spoke to Joy Business at the Ghana Employees Association's annual leadership conference.
They are showing signs of progress, they are showing signs of competence, and they are showing signs that given the opportunity, they can break the glass ceiling and assume position of responsibility at the highest level in their various organizations. So we decided last year to bring all of them together, to share their experiences, to touch base with each other, and look at how collectively they can improve upon their capacity to, as women, make differences in the organization by aspiring to take the leadership mantle.
Chief Executive of the Ghana Employees Association. Now, Emefa, should there be another Ghana Amalgamated Trust to deal with banks that have been hit badly by the domestic debt exchange program? Well, that is what we'll be trying to get some answers as we look at this thing on the PM Express Business Edition at 9 p.m. on Joy News and the other social media platforms tonight as you engage the Chief Executive of the Ghana Amalgamated Trust, that is GATT, Mr. Eric Otu, as we have a discussion on the banking industry, the challenges, and even the institution itself over the past 5 years. What have they been up to and what have they done for those local banks that they supported? It's at 9 p.m. on Joy News
channel
and all our social media platforms.
At
Evans,
9
don't miss it.
p.m. You can't miss
won't.
it. It's time for sports. Let's bring in Musbao with the very latest. Hello, Musbao.
Hello, Emefa. Well, is the chairman of the Black Meteors Management Committee, Frederick Champon, who's been speaking, and he says he's feeling optimistic of the team's chances at the Under-23 AFCON tournament slated for next month, June, in Morocco. Now, Ghana has been drawn in Group A with host nation Morocco, Congo, and Guinea, with first game coming against Morocco in the tournament opener.
Our first game will be against Congo. We will not play Morocco until the second group game. I mean, notwithstanding, we still have to prepare for any of the countries to meet. We've had meetings with the coaches, and their plan is that as soon as we enter June, when it is that most of the leagues would have come to an end, most of the players will come home. We'll begin with the non-residential campaign, swim for some days before we would commence the mainstream preparation in terms of putting them in camp, and then we also plan to, hold 10 days to 2 weeks training outside Ghana, where we plan to engage in some friendly matches.
Chairman of the Under-23 Management Committee, Fred Echampon, there. Well, at the Under-17 AFCON ongoing, Mali, they've joined Senegal and Morocco to the semi-finals of the tournament after beating Congo by 3-0.
Thank you very much, Musbao.
Well, tonight some children are bearing the brunt of government's failure to pay bondholders their coupons. Today, some of these children join their parents and grandparents to demand what is due them. On day 4 of the picketing at the Finance Ministry, we'll hear the story of Balbel Allen, who is now struggling to take care of her grandchildren and run her NGO that takes care of the aged.
On Tuesday, Balbel Allen traveled several kilometers from Angloga in the Volta region to picket the Finance Ministry. Balbel and her 70-year-old husband invested their foreign retirement packages into government bonds after many years of labor in the United Kingdom.
I lived in England and I decided to return to Ghana with my white English husband. We put our money into a microfinance company. We've not got all our money back. We're still waiting to get it all back. The remaining money he had, I told him, put it in government bonds. They are safe. We've put it into government bonds. Now, nothing is coming. I sold a family property. I feed several old women. I pay school fees for several young children. Some of the old people we look after are sick. They need medication. We cannot afford their medication. And now, what are we supposed to do? Who do we go to?
Balbel operates the Alfred Aite Abbey Foundation, which takes care of a number of children and aged persons in Accra and in the Volta region with returns from her bonds. She says she is haunted by the fear of losing her investment for the second time, a trauma that has compelled her to resort to anxiety pills. On Wednesday, Balbel was accompanied to the picketing grounds by 2 of her cousins who are mentally challenged. She said it is becoming difficult to afford their medical needs.
I have cousins who are having psychiatric problems. If I don't give them their medication, they will start going out on the streets screaming and shouting and stripping themselves naked. What am I supposed to do?
Today, 2 of her grandchildren have accompanied her to picket in solidarity. They want government to pay their grandmother immediately.
Why are you not in school?
Because my grandma doesn't have money to pay my school fees for me. So today, I'm here for my grandma's money so that she can pay my school fees for me. That in the future I can be a police.
Do you know who is holding your grandma's money?
Yes.
Who is holding your grandma's money?
Nana Akufo-Addo.
So if you meet him one-on-one today, what will you tell him?
I'll tell him that I want my grandma's money back for him because we are planting the house and then my grandma can buy food for us to eat when she doesn't have money.
Mrs. Balbel is frustrated by the dead silence of opinion leaders on their plight.
Well, so that's a day 4 of the picketing. But let's do total recall now. And the Ashanti region continues to grapple with inadequate health infrastructure despite the completion of construction works and stocking of new health facilities. While the only tertiary facility in the region, the Konfanochi Teaching Hospital, is overburdened and overstretched as well. In this report, Ohiming Teria of our health desk takes a look at the failure to operationalize the Afare Military Hospital and the Syria Regional Hospital and others.
I believe it won't take long. All these client obligations will be executed and we can come and commission this facility.
That is Health Minister Kwaku Ajimaimenu during a visit to the newly constructed Ashanti Regional Hospital at Sewia in August 2022. 8 months on, the facility is yet to be put into use because government has failed to honor its client-related obligations. The fully equipped hospital at Sewia will be the third biggest health facility in the region. Several promises from the government to operationalize the facility remain a mirage. Sawua Jasihine, Nana Safo Echampong speaks for the frustrated residents.
The regional hospital project started during former President Kufuor's regime. It's been 25 years since. The period saw former President Kufuor, former President Mills, followed by Mr. Mahama, then President Akufo-Addo, all contributing. But yet, the project is still not completed. The people of Sawua are not pleased with delays in completing the project. We are very disturbed. It has become a nightmare.
The Ashanti Regional Director of the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Emmanuel Kojo Yankson, told the 2022 annual review meeting the Sawua Regional Hospital could be inaugurated in the last quarter of 2023.
The regional hospital at Sawua is completed. We are left with access road to the facility and dedicated electricity and water supply.
Well, so that's our total recall, and that's how we end today's edition. In fact, the entire week edition of Newsnight here on Joy 99.7 FM. Tomorrow, we'll bring you Ghana Connect, and we're connecting on a very topical issue you can't miss. You want to stay tomorrow for it, and then we are looking forward to that court case
yes,
tomorrow.
We are looking forward to that
and
court
your
case.
election headquarters
Showdown in court tomorrow.
I'm
looking forward to the newspapers tomorrow. You possibly see one. Do you want to bet on this?
Showdown in court.
A front page
Now
headline.
you're giving them headlines.
Front page headline with that. NDC showdown.
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Well, we look forward to it. And I am Emefa Apawu.
And my name is Evans Mensah.
We have personality profile coming up, a repeat of that interview with Cheryl Lee Ralph. You want to stay for